Dr. Emily Jones. I'm here with Brielle Ciucci, who's a physical therapist at an outpatient setting in Chicago, Illinois. Brielle serves as a physical therapist for individuals from birth to 100 across a lifespan, and she's joining us today for an episode for us to talk about partnerships and the significance of partnering with those within and beyond the school setting to strengthen and support health and physical educators who are on mission with us. And Brielle, we're super excited to have you here with us today. Thanks for joining us. And we'd love to have you introduce yourself and your role, what you do on a daily basis.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And like you said, I'm a physical therapist. I have been for coming up on 19 years. And I really valued partnering with my community. I treat in a clinic. Yes, that's my primary spot in the profession, but I also do a lot with the community at large, just helping with encouraging education in physical health, but also ways of getting older adults involved, getting kids involved, working with park districts, and just helping people reach some of those health goals that sometimes they know they have and sometimes that they don't realize that they have.
Yeah, our Shape America Recruitment and Retention Task Force is excited to talk to people like yourself in our communities who have significant roles in the lives and healths of children, their families, and our community members. And it's been exciting to hear about how you have partnered in the past with school-based health professionals and how you're currently partnering as a physical therapist with individuals within schools that would promote health and well-being of children and their families. Can you talk to me a little bit about your role as a physical therapist or as a healthcare provider, or maybe even as a parent, in the role of partnering between schools and outside entities that would promote health and well-being of children?
Yes, that I think is a huge component to just health in general is partnering. And it's not just health professionals partnering with health professionals and physical trainers partnering with physical trainers and teachers, PE teachers, health teachers partnering. But I think we need to integrate all of that. I've worked in a school. It was a grant program between undergrad and postgrad where we provided after school and summer activities for kids. And the activities ranged from a Boy Scout troop to a basketball program to a sewing club. And then as a PT, going in and helping kids that have congenital disabilities, things they were born with, and how can they participate in school physical education, participate in not just PE, but out on the playground at recess. And unfortunately, my participation in those situations are usually the patient coming for some reason and then, reaching out to the PE teacher or something to say, hey, how can we partner? But I see their potential to be so much more in that respect with occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists. And I recognize that there are those professionals within many school districts already. But I think that can be expanded on. I think that can be a bigger role. And yes, we have to make, when we're in the district and they're hired by the district, it needs to be classroom based. And how can it relate to the education component with IEPs, et cetera. But I think if some of us who are outside of the school district are partnered with, we can go bigger. Sometimes with PE teachers, they may be the first line of defense, we'll call it, in seeing a kid that has these coordination issues. It just doesn't seem like it's improving, but they can say, hey, mom, dad, I think you might want to have an evaluation by a physical therapist, an occupational therapist. I don't think this is just a phase. I think this might be something going on that's neurologic or something like that. That's not end of the world. It's not something that needs to be, oh my gosh, what's wrong?
Sure.
It's, hey, there's something that's going on here that we can work together and make the opportunities for the kid more beneficial. And that can be on so many different levels. But until I think we start talking to one another
Yeah.
and having these conversations, we remain on these islands that maybe there's a bridge or two, but there might need to be like a highway between them
I
with more
love that.
communication.
Yeah, and a couple of the things that you said really resonate. One of them is, well, first and foremost, that the children or the child is the center,
Right.
right? It's very focused on building opportunities or experiences together that would benefit the learners and attending to their needs, as diverse as they may be. And then the other thing that really struck me is this notion of shared expertise, is that we don't have to be competing against one another or intimidated by one another, but rather supported and uplifted by the unique, diverse content areas that and the contributions that we both bring, or that we all bring, towards that mission of having it be an elevated, positive, and successful experience for a student.
Absolutely. And I think it feels, as a therapist, maybe as a teacher, just someone collaborating, it's, hey, I get to be a part of this community of people who have a common goal. How important is that when we're, in, maybe we're in a sport, a team sport, we all have a common goal. Well, when we're working and looking at these collaborations or partnerships for health and physical education, and I never want a teacher to feel alone in that, when there are community members that sometimes they just want to be asked. And absolutely, I would love to help with X, Y, or Z, or provide my expertise in X, Y, or Z. And even looking at other professions, a doctor and a physical therapist, even though we're both trained to do certain things, our training is to look at things from different perspectives. Not saying we're missing something, we're just not trained to look at it in that way. That's why you need the collaboration. And I think with health and PE, it's a great place to start making those connections, start putting those Legos together and clicking them together to build something bigger.
That is really exciting. And it leads me into this next line of thinking, which is, from your perspective, where you sit and stand, for those who are training future teachers, training future health, physical education teachers, adapted physical activity specialists, what do we need to know, from your perspective, to better prepare and support current teachers to do just that, to ask for support, to bring together people in ways that could really enhance experiences and lived and health and well-being for our communities?
Mhm. One, if I'm talking to higher education teachers, professors, those things, those individuals, I would say start modeling it in your own classrooms, if it's possible. Um, you're teaching and working with these college students who are going to go out and teach these kids. Start introducing them early to outside help. For example, I think the first thing that comes to mind for me would be, if you have a yoga instructor, a Tai Chi instructor, an exercise physiologist that is working with patients with cardiac health, but also know how to say, hey, here's how to start healthy so I don't have to see you later on, even though kids aren't thinking that.
Mhm.
Um, necessarily, they're not thinking of those things, but if we can start introducing those types of individuals, the kids are gonna put that back in that memory bank somewhere.
Sure.
And then maybe somewhere down the line, be like, oh, remember that person that came in and taught us this or helped with that, um, that educated us on this aspect. I didn't understand it, but wow, it really made this activity more interesting. Bringing physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists into the classrooms and introducing them to these college students so that when they go out and are looking for resources, they have those in mind, that that's who can help support them in what they're doing. And like I said, there a lot of times there are physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists that are already in the school districts. And a lot of times because of that, they are more restricted in some of the things they're able to do. But speaking for myself as a community physical therapist,
Mm.
in a heartbeat, I would jump on an invitation. Hey, why don't you come talk to us about this? Or, we're having a continuing education thing on this. Would you be able to speak for 10 minutes on something? Um, like that would be exciting to me, I think, to start those partnerships once those college kids get out into the workforce, that they have the footings for this foundation for them to build their career on that isn't individual. They have a support network, a support system that they can go look outside the box to help support them. So they're not trying to do it all alone either.
That's really interesting. Now, what do you think, kind of, I'm going to ask you to sort of put yourself in the shoes of a physical educator or a health educator for a moment.
Hmm.
We might find it a little bit intimidating going into a physician's office or a PT clinic and saying, this is what I need from you. Um, Imagine that a situation, and how could you see that be a reciprocal, like a win-win, right? Benefit for everyone.
Hmm.
Not only might the children or maybe a university classroom or a pre-service teacher gain some knowledge, but how could that benefit you as a professional? And why might you say yes to that?
My first response is, I don't know your needs unless you share them with me. And you're not going to know my needs unless we start a conversation. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so I think collaboration with teachers, whether it's at the elementary level, junior high, high school, some of it may not even be necessarily the activity that's being performed,
Mhm.
but it may also be the opportunity for me to go in and see, oh, they're trying to teach X, Y, and Z. And I see this later on in life because of whatever. And there might be something that we can then collaborate on and say, hey, we want to provide this activity. Here's maybe a safer way to do it. Here is a way that we can make this a lifelong learning for myself, for the teacher, for the kids. But I think, and even for myself, if I'm being a little selfish, um, I may have the opportunity to talk to a kid who didn't even know what a physical therapist was.
Sure.
And I can draw them into, hey, this might be a profession you might really be interested in. And
Sure.
then this helps me kind of advocate for my own profession as well by being in those situations. And I don't know, I think from when I started my career, even before I was a physical therapist, um, if we don't talk to one another, we don't know shared needs. We
Mhm.
don't know how we can help each other if we're not having open communication. And I don't want to put the ownership, I guess, on schools, but that's something that's consistent through every community. There's a school. So
Mhm.
I almost see them as a spoke in the wheel.
Mhm.
The hub, not the spoke, I'm sorry, the hub. Because there's always going to be a school. There may
Mhm.
not always be certain industry or restaurant, but there's always going to be a school. And that doesn't matter where in the country you are, in the city, out in the country, in the mountains, by the beach. It doesn't matter. You're
Mhm.
going to have a school. And they can a lot of times be a unifying source because, I mean, how most people, not all, their kids are going to go through that system if they have them at one point or other, or a grandkid, or a niece or nephew, or a next door neighbor, or some kid that you have interactions with. They're all going to be going through a school. And that even includes, to me, that even includes the homeschoolers.
Mhm.
Um, all
Yeah.
of that collaboration.
Yeah, and one of the things that's neat is this emphasis of learning from one another is that
Mhm.
we have very diverse knowledge, skills, experience, social position or educational positionality, and yet we can't learn from one another unless we engage with one another. And that might be a little bit of sometimes it might feel a little risky because it's hard to be told that what you're doing isn't right. But opening the door with a conversation of, I want to learn, and being open minded to learning and growing in a very safe and respectful environment.
Absolutely.
And in that way can be really powerful. So you've mentioned, I was going to ask you about advice for establishing partnerships.
Mm.
Uh, do you have anything additional that you think would be valuable to share from your experiences, what you've done or what you've seen work or not work in terms of making the ask, and then sort of developing an ongoing interaction, not just a single ask and response, but an ongoing partnership?
Absolutely. So on various levels, I would say that I have previous experience. But I think one of the biggest was, again, I think I mentioned before, I ran for 2 years a program in a school that was after school and summer activities that kind of morphed into also supporting teachers during the school day as well. If they had a topic they were working on or a unit they were doing in class, because of my position in the activities department, where I was going out to Kiwanis, Boy Scouts, women's leagues, sewing clubs, church groups, um, businesses, and saying, hey, here's projects I would like to do for my program. But we were in a low income, high minority area that there wasn't a lot of funding. So I kind of took it on and said, well, if we don't have the funds, I'm going to go find somebody who will listen to me. And I just started knocking on doors, setting up appointments, and just got out there and talked. Someone, said, oh, I overheard someone, hey, we need a guest speaker for such and such. I would go hand them my card. Hey, I would love to be a guest speaker. Here's what I can talk to you about.
Mm.
And I just started hitting the pavement and saying, here are my needs. How can we partner? Do you have any needs that maybe I can help? If you're helping me, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That's not a bad thing. If we can share resources, that's a less strain on the individual.
Mhm.
And from that, I kind of learned from that experience, the worst thing that someone could say was no. And
Right.
guess what? That no is all right, then I move on to the next one, because law of averages, I'm gonna get a yes.
Mhm.
That's what sales is based on. Sales is based on the percentage of no's that you get to the yes. And so if we can collaborate and work together, if you hear a no from someone, great. Because guess what? That means you're that one step closer to a yes. And in collaborating, you're not only helping yourself if you're going out and recruiting and saying, hey, I need help with this, but you're creating a network. that maybe you don't need the service of someone out there, but because you're making this network, you've connected, you might be able to connect to others.
Mhm.
And you start, and like we said, start the conversation. When it comes to being a PT, I started off in a children's hospital, and I think one of my favorite phone calls was after I sent a kid back from being an inpatient, sometimes even an outpatient kid. And I'll say, unfortunately, it didn't happen as often as I would have liked. But when I had a PE teacher call me and say, "Hey, I know this kid was just seeing you. Is there anything I should know? Is there anything that I should do differently? Is there anything blah blah?" And the conversation that started, we were able to do so much together that we weren't able to do apart. Because I could send notes with the parent, "Hey, if the PE teacher has a question, let me know." Or if the PE teacher said, "Hey, ask what the PT says that the patient or the kid's able to do." Notes between are one thing, but that collaborative conversation is huge. It's huge. And even right now, where I'm at now, I unfortunately don't have as much connection with schools because I'm not necessarily treating a lot of pediatrics. Um, but I've partnered with Park District and helping older adults be more active. Saying, "Hey, just because you maybe use a walker or a cane now that you didn't use before, you can still be active. And here's how." And those partnerships, regardless of who they have always, in every situation, benefited in some way. And it hasn't always been for me. And I'm okay with that
Mhm.
because at least I have knowledge of it so that when I do hear through the grapevine, "Oh, so and so needs this," you know what? I have a contact for you. And
Mhm.
you're able to connect them. And like I said, it just provides this network, which is, I mean, you can't put a price on it, in my opinion.
Sure. In what ways do you think perhaps school-based health or physical education programs or curricula need to evolve to better or best meet the needs of learners?
That's a really good question. Um, I would say keeping a perspective of lifespan. Um, I guess I'll go on just my own experience. You know, growing up having PE as a class, um, a lot of it was team, group sport, those kind of things, which I think are very beneficial on multiple levels. Teaches collaboration, teaches teamwork, teaches compromise, working together, all those things, which are super valuable. On another level, we have all these sports going on, and a lot of kids that are participating in travel teams and outside of school sports. Not everyone can afford that. It's providing that outlet for some kids in the school that they maybe can't outside of school. So I think that's very valuable as well. An outlet for a kid or something that they're truly passionate about and love. The next level to me is reaching outside of the walls, because if we want to talk about lifespan, most people in their 40s and 50s aren't playing basketball. They're not out there playing flag football or insert any other sport necessarily. But what I do see people participating is maybe bowling. They're on bowling leagues. How can that be addressed as exercise, as health, getting out moving, going to yoga instructors? "Hey, can you come introduce the students to yoga, Tai Chi?" I personally work with an exercise physiologist who her entire clientele are people who are learning how to work out. Some of them, they'll tell you the only time I ever did any physical activity was in a PE class as a kid.
Mm.
and they never carried it outside of the classroom. Once they went into the workplace or starting a family or something like that, they maybe were doing things that were health like, but they just never seen it that way. Vacuuming your house, dusting your house, carrying laundry up and down the stairs 15,000 times.
Mhm.
How can I make that a workout? How can I see that as a workout? And I think starting those kinds of things, and maybe it's once the kids are a little bit older. Well, no, I disagree. I'm going to go back to my original. Starting kids and seeing what they do on a daily basis with just moving, taking the dog for a walk, helping take the trash out, going to each room of the house, collecting the trash and carrying it out to the dumpster or out to the garage, wherever your garbage cans are. Make it an exercise. And a running club. There are many running clubs out in the community for adults. Who's the leader of that? Hey, let's bring that in and have that be part of a curricula for maybe cardiovascular health. Um, the calisthenics that, used to start, I think back when I was a kid, that started every PE session as you did calisthenics. You did push-ups, you did sit-ups, you did jumping jacks, all those kind of things. It's not horrible. There's all good things, but just looking at things at a broader perspective of health and fitness and lifetime wellness. Um, like I said, I have this exercise physiologist that I work with. Some of her clientele are, I don't know how to work out. I
Mhm.
knew how to play basketball. I knew how to do those kind of things with classmates, but not individually on my own.
Mhm.
And, you know, she's even provided classes for kids during the summer where they come together and they have fun working out together. That doesn't necessarily look like what you or I might consider a workout of, okay, lifting weights, doing sit-ups, but kid-like activities that she's able to say, guess what? You just exercised for 20 minutes playing tag, playing duck duck goose, doing those kind of things, just to put a different framework around exercise and health.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, one of the things that is a focus of workforce development and um, ensuring that there's value of school-based educators, and we're working with such the broad population, right? Not only do you get to see the lifespan, educators in schools see children and adolescents, but we see population-based constructs, right? With a range of economic status and racial
Hmm.
diversity and cultural background,
Hmm.
interests and motivation, geographic region. Um, and those schools, as you so accurately noted, are hubs in many communities. Um, and school teachers and professionals who are in schools, um, we've seen kind of an ebb and flow of those choosing to become teachers. And when we think about population-based challenges or social constructs of what it means to be a teacher or physical educator or health educator today, um, there's a wide range of what is perceived to encompass that job, right? And what it means to teach within these schools in our communities. Given that, what sorts of based on future generations of teachers, right? That we're wanting to continue to recruit and attract young people to choose teaching as a career, teaching PE and health, for instance. What are some of the needs that you think we might need to address as a profession as we anticipate recruiting and then retaining high quality professionals to do this important work in schools and communities?
That can be a loaded question. Holy cow. Um, I think even as my kids have been in school, um, going through COVID, that whole situation, um, I think so much more is being asked of our teachers now than it used to be. Um, addressing mental health more often and recognizing it and going beyond just the classroom education, which, like, thinking about some of the social emotional training that they do, that they have in schools now, that was never a part of my schooling growing up. That was, parents, social workers, um, clergy, like that's who took care of that. Where now I think that we're asking teachers to do that more often, educators to do that more often. I mean, let's be real. During the school year, there are times that the teachers at school see my kids more than I do.
Sure.
That's just a reality. I'm not asking them to parent because I want that to be my job. That's my job. But because they are seeing them more, I want to support them as best as I can. And I think that, well, that's the teacher's job. That's the this job. No, 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 no. If we're raising kids, it's a community effort. We need to be supporting one another as best we can. And even when it comes to resources, an inner city school, unfortunately, aren't going to have the same resources necessarily as a suburban school. That's just fact, right? But if we can collaborate, and I say this not as just I think it would work, because of what I've seen on social media when it comes to GoFundMe stuff. I think there's the money out there. It's that collaboration, that networking, that talking, that if a school district can't afford something, then guess what? Let's talk with business. Let's talk with individuals. How can we help one another? And kind of take some of that discrepancy and start to level it out. And I don't necessarily always think that it's government. I don't think it's always, well, this organization or this group should take care of all that. Like I said, a school is a hub and there's folks coming out. And if we can support one another, that's where we're going to benefit the kids most. And benefiting the kids is going to benefit society because they're the up and comers, right? They're the ones that are going to start taking over some of our spots as we age out and aren't in the workforce anymore. And if we can support them and value their contribution, because kids contribute to society as well. And if we can have that collaboration and that support, no matter the location, no matter all of those things, we're going to have a better society later on. I know that sounds very utopian, I guess, but unless we start taking steps, we're not going to solve it overnight. There has to be baby steps. And I think when it comes to going back to, how can we support our educators? It's not a how can we, it's we have to. So let's figure out ways. Because I'll tell you, when I'm treating a teacher, they're not loving it anymore compared to, let's say, 10 years ago. When students who are in being treated are talking about, oh yeah, I think I want to be a teacher. And the teachers who are there being treated, who are teachers, say, oh, I don't know, I'd rethink that. Like there's that tells me, without even being in a school system, that something's wrong. That we have kids who are saying, I want to do this, and people who are in it currently saying, really? I'm not so sure. That to me is a systemic something or other. Something's going on. Do I know what it is? Can I fix it right now? No. But one thing I can do is support the teachers I do know and say, how can I help? How can I support? Is there a donation that my company can make? Is there a talk I can come give? Is there a resource that I can go out and find for you if you don't have the time to do it? That's just one way, I think. Something that I benefited from in my undergraduate education is I had to do a grant writing class. Did I want to? Absolutely not. But I did. And have I written a grant? I've written one. I haven't had that hasn't been a necessity for me since, but what it did do is it taught me how to evaluate cost, need, resource, to write a proposal, to go out there and be specific with what you need. That's another way. Be specific. Don't be afraid to ask for something specific. That's how you get what you want.
Mhm.
And so in supporting and educating is, hey, go out there, do it. Don't be afraid to ask the big ask. Like I said, the worst they can say is no, and then you move on to the next whoever. Um,
Not only
because,
does it not only does it outline what you want, but it also outlines what you need. And
yeah,
when you're able to articulate your needs and communicate your needs, your own value is reinforced and established to other people and
exactly.
in yourself, right? And
Absolutely.
your needs and communicating your needs are really essential in reinforcing your value. So, Brielle,
Absolutely.
it has been a pleasure talking with you. Your perspectives from a healthcare provider, as a community member, as a parent, is essential in us understanding ways that we can better partner, we can be better partners, and look for opportunities to support one another and learn from one another, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others. So thank you so much for taking the time today. And I'm excited to hear how you will continue to and how others would be inspired by learning from you. And we appreciate you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.